Hello and welcome to a series of podcasts from Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Adoption. And hopefully we're welcoming you to the start of your adoption journey. This is the second of 2 episodes on early permanence, so if you haven't heard the first one, load that one up before we go any further, because in episode 1 we talked to Alison, Sharon and Carrie about what EP is and why it's so good. This time around, we find out how it really feels to adopt.
It's really hard to actually find the words to say just how much we just love him.
And we reassure you that you can do it.
I'm so glad that they were in my life, and I would do it a million times over knowing that I would get my children.
You are more resilient than you think you are. Early permanence sounds frightening and like more than you could cope with, and that's what I thought, but actually, is it?
So we've already touched on some of the challenges of adopting, but I wanted to know what effects the adoption process can have on a couple's relationship. Now, I felt a little bit nosy asking, but our mums have been so wonderfully candid so far, so I thought I could ask, and Carrie was happy to respond. We'll then hear from Sharon and Alison.
So is it tough on relationships, this process? It is, but I would say however you come by your children, it's a different level of strain on a relationship, isn't it? And, you know, you have to be aligned through this training process, and that discussion process with the social workers really does help for you as a couple to think through what your aspirations are and where your differences might be. We did have different views, and yes, the last 7 years have certainly shown that we have different approaches to parenting, and that has been difficult at times. And I guess with most children who've come through, who have been adopted, there's perhaps an additional level of anxiety there for parents, and sometimes an additional level of need for children, which puts a little bit more pressure on the relationship about how you are going to manage those sorts of things. But yes, in a way, you're putting yourself out there for more, taking a bit more on as a parent, and particularly on one hand through that initial early permanence process, which, there is no doubt anxiety attached to that. But then as hopefully you go forward, there is also a bit more to it. But I mean, the rewards are massive, as most parents would tell you. I mean, there is not a single day that I don't think how lucky we are to have our daughter in our lives, that we were in the right place at the right time to be matched with her. I would absolutely take any of the challenges that we've been through.
As you have a choice when you can't have them in the
exactly.
traditional sense, of making a family. You have no choice. We are prepared to put ourselves on the line, and I would do it everything a million times over to have my children. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. I have no regrets of what we did. Yes, there's challenges. There's different challenges as you go along. You embark on adoption, you go through, because basically when you start the adoption journey, the social workers say, so you were born, then what happened? So you're having to go through that process of going through it all. And it's okay to have, things happen that are bad things that happen in your life. It's just how you deal with them. I remember one particular time going through the training, a social worker came to the house and I cried the whole hour. Yes. And Frank said to me, he said, that's it. He said, well, that's, we're not going to be, you're unstable. But And then I felt terrible. But then when I actually analysed it and I spoke to my social worker and, she said, it's all about you dealing with stuff and, if you said to me, we were born, I had a fantastic childhood, and then I got married, and everything went smoothly, then you're probably lying, So I did, you have complex stuff you talk about, but the point is about the relationship is that it is a form of therapy. It was, for us it was. And Frank and I had, we really enjoyed that process. It's not what the media say, all the questions about. They just want to know you. That's all you want to know. But the most strangest thing is you and your partner, or yourself, if you're a single adopter, you know yourself better than anyone. But at the end of the training, you have the paperwork with the social worker writes your life down, and you read that, and you read that back, and that's like, hang on, there's a third person that knows, in my case, there's a third person that knows exactly how I feel and how I dealt with life. So that's a good starting point with relationships. And then going through early permanence, then you have to really consider this. You have to draw on every strength, your resilience, and I just, the bottom line for us was, I wanted a family. We wanted a family. We couldn't do it the traditional sense. I had no choice. Going through with this, I did not want to be in my 80s and 90 years old, reflecting back, thinking, why don't we try that?
Yeah.
I did not want that, and every single void and angst that I have is now completely healed over through the joys of adoption. Yes, recently we have had some issues with my eldest daughter, discussing, she's 8 years old, discussing her birth family, and there is a definite void from, her birth mother to her. The life story book was an amazing tool to use to have to explain things in an age-appropriate way. But you're going to go through that, regardless if it is adoption or a birth parent, just being a parent. There are different issues that you're going to go through. And also, I try and do this. I try not to roll everything back to adoption. Yeah. Because if you do that, then it's not realistic. Yes. It's not. It's just being a parent.
My daughter once said to me, I don't eat carrots, Mummy. I'm like, right, why's that? Because I'm adopted, Mummy. I was like, no, I don't think so. Eat the carrots.
So, top tip, don't fall for the I don't eat vegetables ruse. Make a note of that one for later on. Here's Alison, and I must warn you, things start to get a little bit emotional now.
I would just also say that... it took, I'll be honest here, it took me a little while to really make the decision that I did personally want to adopt. Andy would have adopted years ago, probably. But it just took me a while, and he knew that I had to get there myself. I had to, make sure, explore the IVF and just get to that stage. And yes, I wish now that I had done it years ago, knowing what I know and just how much I absolutely adore our son. But I had to get there. It took a while. And when we did, I literally remember, and this will probably make me quite emotional, but I just remember Andy and I, we were out having a meal, and I just said to him, I said, I think I'm ready to adopt. And actually, that probably will make me cry. And he just said that the day I said that, it just felt like we had conceived.
Yeah.
I didn't think that would make me cry. It's fine. But from that point onwards, it was just everything. And I think we did enjoy the journey. We were going through Andy's multiple sclerosis. He was deteriorating, his legs were deteriorating, and we were going through that challenge. And we'd obviously been through our whole married life. We had been through. That was problem A, the multiple sclerosis. And then not being able to have children, that was problem B. We kept a sense of humour throughout. I think sometimes people probably don't get our humour. It's very much, but that's how we've coped with everything. We've made sure that we've communicated the whole way through.
Absolutely.
Always, from when we first found out he had MS just before we got married, we've always talked about everything. It isn't easy. It is hard. But oh my goodness, the time just goes so quickly. Just have to enjoy every minute. And we just love him to absolute bits. If anything, he's an only child, isn't he? We have to make sure that he's not spoilt. But we do just absolutely adore him. And as I said, Andy, the bond it is so strong. I can't believe I just cried. It's okay. I thought actually you would cry.
I think I think what I recognise in both of you is this, like, whilst sometimes it takes a while to get to the decision that adoption might be the right path, or might be a path that you can do, and that early permanence might be a path that you can do, which probably surprised us all. But once you made that decision, I think what I see in you is this determination, and I felt exactly the same. This focus and determination that I've made the decision now, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability, because it's a path that you can go down.
So no regrets. 0 regrets.
Just no regrets at all. And, it's, if anything, and actually doing this podcast is actually, I'm just so pleased that, actually able to give something back actually to the process and really encourage other future adopters to take the risk and go for it.
It's interesting, as you say, to reflect back on what for us certainly was 8 years ago, and it was all consuming at the time, wasn't it? That year where you are a foster parent, you're going through all those court processes, and you've got social workers around your house every other day, and then how things have changed, and how that seems like a long time ago now, and it was really intense at the time, but actually you do get through it.
Now, one of the things that I found really interesting during our chats was hearing just how perfect the match has been. 3 mums, all adopting children, and every single one of them being a perfect fit. And I put that point to Carrie.
Yes, I mean, I suppose I would say, is the match perfect, or is the sort of parent that go into this, you make it perfect, don't you? I mean, it's sort of heartbreaking, isn't it, to think of your child now going to a different adopted family. You think,
there's no way.
I think how lucky were we to be in the right place at the right time for our daughter. But the people that go into concurrency and adoption more generally, they're strongly motivated to make it work.
You're not going to get through the stages, are you? You're just not going to get through.
It's perfect.
It might even be worth mentioning other people's perception of adoption who've not, adoption haven't touched them. So in those early days as well, when you're going through the fostering type thing. So I've got a couple of stories to tell you. One of them was that our local takeaway. So I'd go there weekly, and you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Yeah.
And so we went, and the week before, and there was no baby. The next week we turned up on a Friday evening. The restaurant is packed, and the lady, she said, "Baby." So I'm like, "Yeah, it's a baby." Baby, and she was using her hand to show a bump on my belly. And this place is packed, and I'm just like going, whoa, my cheeks are so red. And I just said to Frank, I said, I've got to go outside. I said, you get the takeaway. So that's one story. But the other story it's worth mentioning is, so I had bumped into a friend, and she was with an elderly relative, and this person... our friend knew, obviously, that we were in the process of adoption, but this her friend, the elderly person, said, "Oh, I'm really sorry you had to adopt." And I thought, oh, okay. And I said, "I'm really sorry you didn't." So, it's just...
And I think as well, this is
the school
for me,
yeah.
and you don't want to, it's just, don't want to, jump down people's throats, whatever, but the amount of people, and I think they say this to us because they're trying to say, we think that
they don't know what to say.
Like us as a couple and whatever, but the amount of people that say Thomas is so lucky, to have you as his parents, and I'm just, I always just say no, we're actually so lucky to have Thomas.
Yeah.
And that's again something that
so
really touches me.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But again, it's just that's all I ever say is just no. We are really lucky, or we're lucky to have each other. Is probably what I would say.
Yeah.
But not necessarily Thomas. Just lucky to have his.
So it works both ways. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all it is just another way to make a family. That's all it is. And I just think the more that people understand adoption, the more, because obviously adoption does come when you look back in history. It was very much, not talked about, and now we need to make it. It's just how you make a family. That's all. That's all it is.
And I think I've always been, and Sharon, I know you have, and I'm sure Carrie has as well. But from word go, Thomas, he knows he's adopted. We taught the word, and as he's getting older, it's something that's just, we've always talked very openly about, but we are like that as a family anyway. We're very, very open. But I just, I also forget that he is adopted. So, that kind of label, don't necessarily, it's just getting, isn't it, that balance of just kind of teaching them and telling them about adoption. And Thomas now actually likes his storybook that's in his room. He likes to pick it up, look at the pictures, but then he's likely to then ask me what's for tea, or go off on a tangent. But it's actually, and I said to you earlier, that at this point that he's asking a little bit more. I am again so pleased that we did the contact sessions, and that's something that at the time they were hard, or they could be hard. They, it was kind of again a very sort of difficult period. But now, when I'm talking to Thomas, I'm picturing them. I had huge respect for them. And that kind of bridges that gap, doesn't it? It's amazing because it just kind of then...
Totally does, totally.
Anything, he doesn't actually ask me many questions, but anything I can say, oh, well, actually, this is how your biological mother was or is, and actually answer those questions. So I actually can see now very clearly the benefit of those contact sessions, which I never thought I'd say.
Because at the time, because when you look and you read the information about the birth family, it's all negative. Or obviously, if it wasn't, then you wouldn't generally be, the child wouldn't be in the adoption arena. So when you are doing contact and you have got that face-to-face, I was in a unique situation because... my eldest couldn't cope with contact without me in there. She attached to me very, very. So I went to contact every week for I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was months. And I only was just saying to my husband the other day that actually I can tell you. It was the birth father that I was with. I could tell you what his favourite colour was. What kind of crisps he liked, all the stuff that's not in the social worker paperwork. So that was at the time it was really super hard, but looking back, it's a unique position to be in, and I'm so glad that I had to do that.
Yeah, I think that opportunity to get to know them a little bit more than. Certainly in our experience, we had contact, but not a lot. We didn't get to know them. And, it's a difficult scenario on both sides, but
don't you think as well? The fact that we were very fortunate, and we had our children from pretty almost from birth. I don't know. It's just like I couldn't imagine now adopting an older child, not because I don't know, just. You wouldn't want to miss out on anything, would you? Just absolutely everything. And the whole nature nurture is fascinating. It is fascinating.
It is, absolutely.
But just being there from the start and just every single thing, not missing out on anything and watching them, meet their milestones, or even if they don't, just, being able to do everything and support them and just...
The cuddles.
Just everything. Absolutely everything. I just wouldn't have wanted to miss a single thing.
I think Sharon, you've obviously seen that, the difference in that experience, and I think I'm having lived through those sort of really early months. You are really conscious how different it must be getting a child even at 8 months to getting a child within the first couple of months, and a really different sort of challenge, for parents and for the child. Actually, really different. Early permanence certainly. In some circumstances, clearly gives you the opportunity to take a child very early.
To grow with a child, to nurture from the beginning, and makes that attachment so much easier. My son, in 8 months, in relative speaking, in terms, that's being adopted 8 months is quite young. Really, let's face it. But it was only because of my previous experience. Had he been my first, then I'm sure things would have been slightly different. And maybe because my house is, quite busy as well. It's a bit bonkers. It's all relative to your situation at the time, isn't it? Really.
So hopefully you're listening along at the moment thinking EP is definitely something you're interested in. Now, your partner, if you have one, might be fully on board. They might be nervous. They might even be one step ahead of you. As you've heard, that's all pretty normal. But what other support is available to you as you embark on your adoption journey?
There's the official sort of support in that there's your social worker, and then your child will have a social worker as well. And we were really fortunate to have wonderful social workers actually supporting us, we were really lucky that our social worker really did kind of get us and some of our challenges and some of our thought processes, and she was enormously supportive in helping us thinking through whether early permanence was the right decision for us. And then actually our daughter's social worker, we benefited hugely from, because she was an extremely experienced social worker who knew the situation and could give us a degree of reassurance when we were really anxious about the situation and how it might pan out. And then, of course, there's the kind of support that you get from your own networks. And whilst your friends and family maybe haven't been through a similar experience, we did have enormously supportive friends, and and certainly my family, my sister particularly, who had a very different experience to me with her own birth children, but unbelievably supportive actually. So over that really intense period, and then the challenges don't go away, do they? But perhaps the support changes, and we've been lucky enough that we haven't had to go back and draw on any kind of post-adoption support for our daughter at this stage. But we know where they are essentially, and what for us is a really useful source of support is that our daughter has birth siblings, also adopted by other families, and we see them quite a lot. And I mean that's great. I mean we're a collection of people who our only thing in common is our children, but it's been really nice to get to know them as couples and families, and we can bounce ideas off about our varying children's behaviour and the challenges, and that is a great source of support for us as well.
I think what I would definitely say is anyone that's listening to this, anyone that is going through the training, start there, because that's where I met Ali and Carrie. That's where we all, get into it. And now, 10 years later, 8 years later, we're still friends. And they are, so for our children, which is very supportive for them, is that when we're chatting about their journey, we can call upon, or just say, Ali's child is adopted, so-and-so's child, Carrie's, our children know each other, so they're not isolated, and that's a really, really lovely, comforting thing to have. Work's actually very supportive. I mean, if you're lucky enough, I work 2 days a week, and today's a work day, and my boss said, you must do this because you come with a wealth of experience, so you draw from, support from there, obviously. And going forward, as your children get older, my children are my support as well now. It's definitely something it's ideal to have a support network. I think you need it, especially in the early days.
Some really useful words from Sharon and Carrie, and now Alison.
I totally agree, and I think. Yeah, definitely through the process. We made some great friends. We obviously met some great adopters through the process. But then, as it happened, our neighbours at the time, when we got to sort of know them, they'd actually been through the adoption process through the mainstream adoption, and actually had a little boy who came to live with them at the age of 5, and this was before we had actually decided to adopt. So actually we're still very much in touch with them, and actually this 5-year-old is now an 18-year-old and actually we sort of made sure we were like part of his life as well. And actually, he really, really wanted us to actually celebrate his 18th with him. And actually, I remember when we then went through the journey and had Thomas, we actually, that kind of explained to Thomas, and obviously to this particular he's an adult now, but they've got each other, and the age gap is actually was about 13, 14 years, but that's really nice as well. We have a huge amount of support around us, but also further afield as well, obviously with Carrie, and it is very, very important from word go, isn't it, to have family and friends. They've obviously, you need to use a certain amount of them for your references as well.
You're
scrutinised you as well. But again, that's kind of good because it gives them an understanding of what you've gone through as well, so that they can continue to offer that support. I think for us now, again, we're nearly 10 years into it, but I think also remembering, and actually when I recently did go to the adoption summer party actually and spoke to a couple of social workers, just remembering that there's still that ongoing support.
My final question for the ladies was this. If you had words of advice for anyone thinking about making just the first step into adoption, what would it be? Alison went first.
My goodness. Definitely just go for it. Just go for it. Make sure that it is right for you as a couple. Really talk to your other half, or if you're a single adopter. Obviously, we met some amazing single adopters, just fantastic, and we're so sure that was the right thing for them. Just make sure that you have got your support network in place, whoever that might be from, whether it's other adopters, whether it's your family and friends. Just make sure that you're ready for it. But by far, just go for it. It's the best thing that you could do, really. It's it's everything to us, really, and we are really grateful. And I'm so pleased I've been able to do this, just to say thank you, really, to social workers, everybody that was involved in our journey. I find it hard, and this is where I think that we're all going to say it, and I will get emotional, but it's really hard to actually find the words to say just how much we just love him. Yeah, that's what I can say. Really. Sorry. Yeah. So don't hesitate. Just do it. It's amazing, and just go for it. Yeah.
It's Sharon's turn now as she reflects on how adoption has changed her world.
Every single day, I look at them, and I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They all go mad, but at the end of the day, when and put them to bed, and they just tell me they love me more than anything in the world. That's the best feeling ever. And that, as I said earlier, the gap I've got for not being able to have children in the conventional way is so filled. I'm so glad that they're in my life, and I would do it a million times over knowing that I would get my children. And the biological element of it is just... it's very small, it's becoming a very distant memory.
And some final sage advice from Carrie.
Yeah, I think if anyone was considering early permanence, I would really encourage people to talk to people who've been through the experience about what the reality is like, look at what the outcomes are for the children, what are the advantages of early permanence over a mainstream adoption route. Think about how you will manage the tough times, because any child that comes to you through an adoption route will have challenges, and they can be tough, and you need to be ready to really advocate and fight for what your child might need. But it's a wonderful opportunity, and I wish at the time, having felt we'd had awful luck, or maybe not luck, but through our original IVF attempts, that suddenly our luck was about to change, and we got unbelievably lucky to have our daughter placed with us, and I'm enormously grateful for that, in the same way that Ali and Sharon have explained. you are more resilient than you think you are. Early permanence sounds frightening and like more than you could cope with, and that's what I thought. But actually, is it? Could you cope with that? We were more resilient than we thought we were, and I suspect most people listening to this are as well.
As we prepared to part, I thanked our mums not only for their contribution to this project, but also for what they do, adopting, opening their hearts and their worlds to children who needed a second chance. Their response, though, well, it surprised me a bit.
It's funny you say that. I just do not think of it as in that way. I do not.
I don't know. I sometimes think, it's, and I don't want to get too deep, but, I just sort of sometimes think, well, I don't know. I think it does take a certain type of... I sometimes think, well, why? Why couldn't we have children? Why not? But actually, now, I don't know, it sounds really... It's probably quite cliched, but I think we were supposed to be his parents. It was always in the card. It was in our,
Does feel that way.
It feels that way, very much so.
Yeah, I guess you have to believe, in a way, through this process that the best place for children to grow up is with their birth family. If they can live with their birth family and their birth family is good ig then that they should be with their birth family, because the impact of removing a child from birth family is, that's severe. That's a big serious intervention you should only do if there is no other choice. So, but what we can offer is different from a birth family, but hopefully a secure and safe environment where we clearly love these children to bits. And they are our family. We are a family. We may not be their birth family. But we are a family, and these kids are really, really important that they're rooted in your family for their own kind of security and identity later on in life.
So there we go, 3 amazing Cambridgeshire mums who all adopted children through early permanence. Proof of what a powerful and amazing tool it is to give young children an amazing life. Thank you for listening, and don't forget, at any time you can reach the team at Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Adoption via their website or via any of their social media channels.